I just performed a ritual with my mom. The moment has passed, but I'll record it in these pages for you, for the future. I never knew when my mom would share a memory of Dad while cooking, on a walk, with no warning. It knocked the wind out of me. Rituals take this grief and give it a shape and a story. Filling in this journal is a ritual too, but for a loss that hasn't hit us yet. I've brought tools to record the sights and sounds of this season. I'll start by recording the only place I've ever known. Public sleep music is a tradition of ours here. When the music ends, the village will begin to wake up. Last night there was a goodbye party here in the plaza. Everyone was so afraid for me. To understand that fear, to understand where I grew up, you have to know the man standing watch over the plaza, Dr. Fumio. This is Dr. Fumio and his son. The statue isn't as old as it looks. The artist wore it down to give it a feeling of ancientness and the authority that comes with it. Dr. Fumio and his son founded Cairo back in 776. They live on through our traditions. There are 3 murals celebrating Dr. Fumio's work. Last night, my friends wrote down their hopes for my trip and tied them to the branches of this tree. Smells like an old man's toes dipped in cinnamon. I had to drink this gross potion last night. Like my pendant, it's supposed to protect my brain. This is a healing instrument created by Dr. Fumio. It draws on the pure mountain air. There's something eerie about an instrument that plays itself. But wind chimes aren't eerie. I think the self-playing instrument needs to imply the presence of a person who isn't there, like this one does, to be properly eerie. Pate loves fish, even though nobody here has ever seen one. I wish I could tell you more about this poster, but I never thought to ask what it means. Now we'll both never know what it means. Oh well. Remembering everything must be painful. Dr. Fumio brought peace to so many people here. The elder sought out Dr. Fumio to cure her mother, who was suffering from time misperception. The ruins in the distance were used to make us afraid of the outside world. Dangerous and impossible to reach, they said. A village that was created as a place to heal. Is that where my instinct to try to help comes from? It's so strange to imagine I'll be shaped by places and people I haven't met yet. So strange to imagine that I might feel at home somewhere else. I go fishing here with my best friend Pate, even though there's nothing to catch. We both appreciate the silence. Kero Village was founded during the modernity. Much later, Dr. Fumio arrived and remade it in his image. This flower means you're in my thoughts. The morning after the search was called off for Dad, our doorstep was covered in them.
Is it recording?
Yes.
Okay. How to leave home for my daughter. Find a sacred square of earth. Lay down so you have the dirt at your back. Close your eyes. Close everything. Do you see for yourself? You see for the dead, for the unborn. Do you listen for yourself? You listen for the dead, for the unborn. Your ancestors are in that dirt. All the living and all the dead are holding you up. Now stand. They're still there, aren't they? It's time to move, to entangle yourself everywhere with everyone. So the next time you lay down in the dirt, you will have so much more to tell them.
Pate fixed up 3 bikes instead of 1. These bikes were used by messengers a long, long time ago. I hold a photograph of everyone I've ever known. I hold it tight. They were right. The letter never made it. The season before this one, the war, seems so horrible. I can see in these letters that the outside world has extremes, of beauty and tragedy beyond anything I've known. Before setting up in Kero village, Dr. Fumio roamed the land curing people. It must have been hard when he wasn't around anymore, especially for people who couldn't travel to the village. From the village, these cranes look like little creatures, grazing. I had no idea how huge they are. The irony of Kero is that it's a closed-off place on the outskirts of a busy trading hub. A postal hub we hardly used is practically on our doorstep. I heard that village was abandoned because of a mine disease. Not everything. Someone carved notches in the bamboo for the wind to flit through, so it can sing. I feel nourished in these sights by the unfamiliarity of it all. These means of connection, long in disuse, are certainly telling me something about the world. Will they be used again in the next season? We learned about old technology in school, but not much about animals. Goats? My first time petting an animal. I think it went pretty well. I cycled through landscapes, seeing them for the first and last time. I had no idea when I left my home how the season would end, or more importantly, how soon. On a cold, damp day, I feel true loneliness for the first time. Nobody could have described with words how big this world is, how it goes and goes. I passed through it, where others passed before me. was out here alone. One melody is like me out here alone. I have a feeling they use these music boxes to fall asleep. They kept themselves company with music. Two voices is like me and my mom. We can survive, but eventually you need more. Three voices is complex as life is supposed to be. I could listen forever. Time seems to pass differently around here. I feel so heavy and so light at the same time. I'm not really alone. I'm with myself. I'm with the earth. Looks like they made it out of here. But what is this group? In the empty places, I found companionship in the tapes I recorded before leaving home. The elder told me the story of her life. I listened back to it, ready to note down anything that seemed important.
Let's set the scene for the listener, whoever that might be. This is the elder speaking. We're sitting in the plaza, saying goodbye to a dear soul. We're here to see if there's anything useful in my mind that could help you on your trip. A century's worth of memories, dreams, fantasies, visions. Like a big, old, haunted library. When I die, this library will burn down. But which book should we check out first? I don't have all the answers, but I do feel the story of my life could help you understand what kind of world is out there. It's okay not to understand everything right away. The moment may pass before you've gotten a firm hold on it. But as long as you're there to witness it, to take it down in your journal, you and others to come will someday take the time to make sense of it all. I heard, somebody told me, you want to capture what it's like to be alive during this season, for the future? And you want to understand why and how the season is going to end. The season of my youth is long gone, but I can tell you what that season was like and what I know about how it ended. First, I got old. That's an important step. Being an elder is all about how you react. The key is not to be surprised, but kind of frown, look serious, and say something like, "It begins." Never say, "I don't know." Say, "We dive into a pool of uncertainty." I was born on the ocean. My mother and father worked on a cruise ship, the short-lived but glorious Watery Republics. Floating cities. Most won their independence by the time I was born. How can I describe them? They were a jewel of the golden season. Pleasure boats with a radical political program. How nice. The golden age was a time of flags, logos, mottos, mastheads. My mom taught me to read them. She was the ship's philosopher. My dad was a recycling engineer. Recycling on the ship was a matter of life and death. We had to get the most out of every object and watt of energy. My grandparents played with the past. They changed it like we change our wardrobe. So it was a different answer every time. But they often said we were exiles of some kind. Exiled royalty from a secret lineage. Blood that glows in the dark. Or we're exiled from the mouth of some great Leviathan. When they were older, they just said, "We're from here. We're from right now." I loved the way the ship would tilt and roll, especially as I fell asleep. It was so comforting. Picture me as a kid in bed, feeling the swaying of the ship. It was like being rocked to sleep as a baby. I loved exploring the ship too. Wandering through the suites, the swimming pool, the game rooms, and there were 2 dance halls. A large, elegant one and another one in the basement. A lot of my firsts were down there. My first dance, my first kiss, and so forth. Our ship was taken over in the early days of the war. That was the end of the Watery Republics. I heard the dance hall in the basement became a weapons cache. It took me half my life to say goodbye to the world. I imagined me and my parents and everyone I knew being escorted off the ship by a company of soldiers. And I'm thinking, I hope they don't make a mess of my room. I was embarrassed by the younger kids who were crying their eyes out, but they knew, I guess. Yes, the start of the war was a turning of seasons, and we had been warned this season was going to end. Oh, but we didn't understand the warning. You see, one night, along a coastline, we saw beautiful lights shimmering above the water. Later, we found out this was an ancient warning system. It hadn't been used in so long. We didn't know what it meant. We just thought, well, ain't that pretty? We tried to stick together and camped out on the coast of the Prismatic Grounds. A kingdom of art and science. They got rich during the golden season. Everything that made them beloved before the wealth came. Passionate, uncompromised, made them unbearable once they had power. Artists make terrible kings. Are you sure you want me to keep going? The story gets darker from here on. Okay, conditions in the camp were getting worse. My mom got lost in thought for long periods of time. She'd be completely still for hours, days even. We realized she caught, well, now we call it time misperception disorder. It's when you lose your ability to tell how much time is passing. A minute can feel like an hour. A day can pass in 10 seconds. What's so hard is the feeling of absolute loneliness. Normally, we're all at least roughly in the same flow of time. But with this disorder, you walk alone, truly. We heard about a traveling doctor who could cure these kinds of diseases. I decided to go find him. I found out his name was Dr. Fumio, and he traveled with his son Lucio. People talked about him like he was a god. The Prismatic Grounds had roped almost everyone into their system until they reached the far wastes and heard no for the first time. Nobody reacted well. It got to the point of, neighbor grievances had been buried so deeply we forgot they were there. It felt like things changed overnight. I'd pass through a city and hear later that they'd torn each other apart. I could not imagine it. I described my mom's condition to Dr. Fumio. He said there was no cure yet, but there was a village high in the mountains. He thought it was high enough he'd have a better chance at treatment. Lower places are more dangerous. Valleys are the worst. He invited me to join them in going to the village, but I wanted to go back and get my parents and bring them with me. I packed my things and got ready to leave the next morning. At night, my mom came to me in a dream. She was standing in a field of flowers. I'd grown since I last saw her. We were the same height. She pressed a finger hard into my palm. She taught me well. I knew the meaning of the gesture. I knew no matter what I did, I'd never see my parents again. In the morning, I told Dr. Fumio I would follow him to Karo village. The next few weeks were very physically tiring, hiking, climbing. And when we found the village, building, planting, cleaning, Fumio brought sick people from all over the world. The treatments worked. Everyone was healing. So why couldn't I? One day, we never found out how it ended. It was like peace just swept over the earth in a split second. There was a party in the plaza to celebrate the end of the war, but I couldn't bring myself to go. Yes, it was over. But it had taken my home, my family. That night, as I was falling asleep, I felt the bed tilt and sway gently, as if it was being tossed on the waves of the ocean, as if I was back in my bedroom on the ship, as if I was back in my mother's arms, being rocked gently to sleep. I knew I was finally home, and nothing could hurt me.